Hello, everybody that is here, and I hope you're having a good evening. My name is Roddy Young, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and a certified Imago relationship therapist. And tonight I'm going to share with you my interest in Imago and hope I can provide you with some information that will spark you a little bit. There's a little bit I want to tell you right now that can you do me a favor and ask for everybody to fill out the feedback form at the end of the webinar so that it will be sent to you through the chat box. And that since this is recorded and will be updated to the YouTube, can you please keep all comments and questions in the Zoom chat box? All right, thank you very much. Well, as I said, I'm Roddy Young, and I'm an Imago relationship therapist, and I want to tell you a little bit about how I stumbled into this several years back. A number of years ago, my partner and I hit what I call a speed bump on the freeway of love, and we got to a place where we were having a difficult time. And I ended up finding a therapist for us to go to, and he turned out to be an Imago relationship therapist. And we went to him for about, I'd say, 12 sessions. We went, and then we followed up with a weekend retreat with other couples. And it transformed our relationship and gave us a way to talk to each other that we had never been able to do before, and to handle situations that have been uncomfortable, to be able to talk about them and just improve our relationship overall. It's made a big difference. And that's what inspired me to end up becoming an Imago relationship therapist, because it was so helpful for me and my husband. So, Imago relationship theory and therapy was developed by Harville Hendricks and his wife, Helen LaKelly Hunt. They're both PhDs, and each one of them had been divorced. And so Harville Hendricks especially wanted to find out why people end up getting divorced. So he decided to dedicate his life into figuring out how to make marriages work, what goes wrong with them. And so what Imago relationship therapy does is it answers three important questions about relationships. Number one is, why are we attracted to someone? Number two is, what causes the conflict in our relationships? And three, how do we turn this conflict into reconnection and personal growth? And Imago proposes three things. Number one, that we are born in relationships. Number two, we get wounded in relationships, and the way we get healed is through our relationships. I use these same techniques and a lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about this evening when I'm working with individuals too, because I think we are always in relationship with anybody that we know we're in relationship. When I work with individuals, I ask them how their relationships are with the people that are in their lives, whether they're a significant other or friends or family, how that works for them. And we look at it through the relationship uh, lens, which helps a lot. So, Imago, a lot of people wonder what the Imago is. And the Imago is an image, it's a collage containing the positive and negative traits of our primary caregivers, which could be our parents or whoever your primary caregivers were. From the time we are born, we get born into our parents' houses and homes, and they hold us like little babies, and we're like unprogrammed computers. And everything that's going on around us is coming into our brains and being stored back in the back of our minds. And so, um, from the time we're born, we get, and the Imago collage contains the positive and negative traits. And from the time we're born, we unconsciously interject those positive and negative traits from our parents into the back of our brain. Our Imago begins with our parents, and then it's followed by our siblings, the ones closest to. But the early years, say between the time we're born to 4 or 5, and then our siblings come in, and they have a more positive effect on us. From our siblings, it would be the extended families, aunts, uncles, grandparents, people like that. And then it goes on out After that, it goes to all other agents of socializations, and that would be where we go to school, the students that we're with, the teachers we have, whether we go to a church or not, our neighborhood, how that affect us, the people in our neighborhoods and our best friends and things like that. It all comes into this collage, and we begin to seeing the world through that lens. And so we're taught what is acceptable or unacceptable. And as a result, we tend to develop certain traits, shutting down other parts of ourselves and hiding them away. So the socialization tell us what's acceptable and not. We take in what they view as acceptable and we shove down what is not acceptable. And it is during this process that we develop what we call psychological wounds or baggage. And when we grow up, we tend to develop certain traits, shutting down parts of ourselves, like I said. And when we grow up and form relationships, our partners, whoever we're dating, is going to have an imago. Everybody, theoretically, we all have our imago running around with us. And so we're attracted to our partners. We refer to that as the imago match. And we will have many of the same issues and wounds. They're going to be similar ones. The ones that are negative, that are planted deepest in our brain, are they going to be the ones that have the strongest attraction to them. The good ones are nice to have, but it's those that we really are attracted to. Um, there is something different. We're going to have similar wounds and different defenses. So the defenses can be either a minimizer or a maximizer. I'm going to get into explain this a little bit later so it'll make more sense. And where the conflict lies, that's where the conflict lies. And what we find out, what I've found out over my time, and what the theory points out, is that our matches are going to have similar wounds, but they're going to have different defenses. So I'm going to take what they proposed, um, uh, Helen and Horrible. They decided to look at all this stuff, and they came up with the idea that we have two stages of relationships. We have unconscious relationships and conscious relationships. The first stage would be the romantic love, and it's the first unconscious stage. And enter John and Mary. I'm going to use them as an example. John and Mary are two imaginary couples I'm working with. And John is a little bit on the conservative side. He dresses down a little bit. He's neat, kind of buttoned down, get together. He's very likable, has a nice sense of humor, but he's just a little more low key. He's very neat at home. Everything has its place. He's just real together kind of guy, but a nice man. And he falls in love with Mary, and Mary is like him, but very different in a lot of ways. Mary is a little bohemian in the way she dresses. She's got a good sense of humor. She's a little bit loud, gregarious, outgoing. When they go out, she's just kind of the life of the party. She draws attention just by the way she looks. She's got a hearty laugh and she's lots of fun. And he really is taken by her. He thinks he's really attracted to her. He begins to like her, and they each get together and they kind of dote on what each other says, and their love hormones are raging. That's what happens to us in the romantic stage. All the stuff that goes on in our brains, and so we're terribly attracted to each other. We enjoy each other's company. John goes and tells his friends, I just love Mary. She's the most exciting woman I've ever known. She's fun. She's funny. We go out. She's got wonderful stories. She goes out and tells her friends how much she is attracted to him, how uh, put together he is. He's just a wonderful place. She loves going to his apartment. It's neat and wonderful. He loves going to hers because it's just a little bit off center, a little, like I said, bohemian. and they're having great fun. Everything is exciting. They find each other charming and wonderful, and they end up getting kind of blinded by their infatuation to any kind of negative things that they might have. So that's what's happening with John and Mary. And then over time, they settle down, and John and Mary enter the second unconscious stage. And this takes a little bit of time. We can't keep that energy up that we have when we're first dating, where we just want to go out every night. We want to spend every time together, and we want to do this and do that, and go out. And we, kind of settle down a little bit, and the hormones begin to ease back a little bit. Uh, it goes from John no longer asking Mary out or her suggesting that they go someplace to it's just assumed that we're going to be together. It just changes that thing, and people know that John and Mary are a couple, and some of the excitement goes down. And what happens is they turn into the second unconscious stage. And, people say that love is blind. And what happens is that during the unconscious stage, the blinders come off and they see each other differently. Now, the parts that emerge unconsciously reminds them of the negative, unconsciously reminds them of the negative parts of their parents, and the things that they once found charming begin to become irritating. So Mary really likes John. She loves him a lot, but she thinks he's just a little bit too buttoned up. And she begins to wonder, can't you just unbutton that shirt a little bit, just loosen up a bit? Let's go have a little more fun. And they go out, and Mary's being her usual self, gregarious self, and she comes back and sits down talking to him for a little while. He said, "Can't you just reel it in a little bit sometimes? You're always out there being the center of attention. You don't need to do that. Just kind of sit here and be with me." And so the things that they were first attracted to about by the other begins to be the thing that becomes somewhat irritating. And I've seen this in every couple I've ever worked with, and I've seen it in my own relationship. Uh, so in my relationship, I'm the little messy one. I'm the little more ADHD one. My desk is a mess. My husband's is neat, clean, all that kind of stuff. We're different, but we've gone through these things too. And he said, "Can't you clean up that desk a little bit?" And now we've kind of just accept each other. I have an office and he has an office, and we do make things work. But things do become different. And after the hormones settle down and John and Mary enter the second stage, um, they they enter what we call the power struggle. And some couples remain in this stage after the uh, romantic stage ends. And during this second stage, a relationship can change. And it changes in several ways. It can become a parallel relationship. And that's where the energy kind of leaves the relationship. They get settled into it. And parallel relationship, it's like railroad tracks that are going down this way. They always travel in the same direction, go on the same place, but they never touch. They don't get far away from each other, but they don't get close. They're not emotionally close. They enjoy each other. They're having some fun. They're doing stuff, but it's just kind of predictable. It's just going to be simple, and some of the original fire has gone. Uh, or people can go into what we call a volatile relationship, where people get together, they argue, carry on a little bit, and they argue, and then they calm down, they begin to apologize and go together, and then somehow some of the old baggage comes up that kind of irritates them about the other, and they begin to irritate each other again, and then they have another fight. And this becomes a volatile or a toxic relationship. And I'm sure we've all known people like that, couples who tend to fight, argue, make up. I had an aunt and uncle that fit this very well. And they were always the battling Bickersons. They really knew how to fight, but they always got back together. A lot of people just end the relationships and find someone new. And we've all probably known people who have had similar friends in their lives or experienced these things of where you end the relationship and you find someone new. And the thing that's interesting about this is people tend to find the same type every time. And we've heard the stories about women who get abused and they go from one abusive relationship to another, or somebody is attracted to an alcoholic and does the same kind of thing. They're always attracted to the same type. They have, again, they're going to have similar wounds and different defenses. And so they're going to go out and find somebody new, and they're going to repeat the same thing over again and over again. So, what are we going to do about this? This is what Harville and um, Helen looked at, and they thought, we figured out what's going on. What can we do to change relationships into things that work? What can we do to stop this? And so they developed the concept of a conscious relationship. The other two were unconscious. It happens from the reactions in the back of our head. If you know anything about brain chemistry, our reactions come down here at the reptilian part of our brain, and then we go up here to the limbic center where our emotions are. So we react, we get emotional, and then we can get conscious up here at the top and start thinking through some things. So this is what we're going to try to do, is work in this part of our brain, be aware of the unconscious parts that trigger us, and go forward from that. So what we're going to do, couples will learn how and why do the conflicts arise. That's the number one thing. If we can figure out what's causing these things, then we can know how to change them or work around them. How do we move past the conflicts? And how do we turn conflicts into opportunities for personal growth and connection? Couples begin, as they begin working with a therapist, will understand that what is irritating may have more to do with their own childhood wounds than their partner's actions. So let's say somebody says something to you, or if somebody says something to me, my partner would say something to me, and it hits me just the wrong way. I can just feel it. It's like a little jolt in my stomach is where I feel it. Other people feel it up here, elsewhere. When you get triggered, you'll feel it in your body. You'll have a bodily response. As soon as you get aware of that, then you have a chance to kick up into the conscious part of our brain. For instance, someone may have an underlying belief of not being good enough. So if one partner says or does something that touches on that wound, however unintentional, the other will react much stronger than normally based on the partner's actions. So if I'll just choose my husband, if he were to say something to me that I felt as criticism, I might react real strongly because I had an older brother who criticized me a lot. So I might react strongly to something he said that was really mindless, but I had a strong reaction to it. I say, what's wrong with you? Or if we're not being conscious about it, we can get into a fight over it. I can say, don't you talk to me like that? What do you mean, don't talk to me? So this is the part about staying conscious in a relationship. Um, Couples come to therapy. This is what happens. I have couples that show up to therapy, and they usually have the same complaint. This is what happens when I am a microtherapist, and I want you to know that people do come to me, and the number one thing that people complain about is that we don't know how to communicate. They tend to just fight and argue. They know how to do that, and they get together and they fight. And what happens in a relationship is said they've had similar wounds but different defenses, and the defenses could be the one will be a minimizer, one will be a maximizer. The minimizer tends to pull away. The maximizer comes after, very emotional, coming after this one. This one withdraws, pulls away like that. I call them turtles and tigers because, again, the tiger's coming this way and the turtle pulls away, but you do it enough and the turtle will snap. And so they'll do that a little bit. But they have a usual way of reacting. One will say something, the other withdraws a bit, maybe just shuts down for a little while and tries to blow it off without talking to their partner. So they come and they want to learn how to talk to each other, to communicate. And what I always say is that, and what I know is that we're always communicating. We are never not communicating. Um, I can sit here and you can say to me, "How are you today?" And I'm turning like this and I'm looking like this, "How are you?" And I'll say, "I'm fine." What am I really communicating? The way we walk, the way we move, the way we react to one another, we're always communicating. So what we want to do is to teach people in Imago how to talk. And talk is different than communicating. Um, and the number one tool that is used in Imago is called the Imago dialogue. And a dialogue means that one person's going to talk, the other's going to listen right away. So it's not talking, you have to listen. The one that's talking has to be listened to by the other. And it's hard to listen if somebody's talking and giving you a hard time, you want to start building your defense. And so you're not really listening to what's going on. But in Mago dialogue, they learn to talk to one another and to listen. And you use this, it's a very safe way of talking, and you use it for four different situations. Number one, you want to express love and affection. Number two, you want to be listened to and understood, or you're upset about something and want to discuss it, or you want to touch on a topic that you think might be upsetting. So, under all of those, it's very appropriate to do. When people first come to me, the number one thing I do, I give them some education about Imago, but I tell them that we're going to be doing this dialogue. And the number one thing I want them to do is to do an appreciation. And I encourage them to do this um, every day, to sit down and give an appreciation. And the steps are very simple, and I'm going to walk you through those. But if you do that and you start putting good things into your relationship, so both parties will be uh, participating in a dialogue. And what happens is if I'm upset or one of my clients is upset and they have something to talk about, what they need to do is walk up to their partner and say, "I have something I want to dialogue with you about. Is now a good time?" And that sets the tone of what's going to happen. In other words, what this person is saying is important and needs to be heard. And that lets the partner know that this is important to their spouse. And so the spouse can say, "Yes, now is a good time." Or the spouse might have just come home from work, tired, worn out. "Let me go upstairs, change clothes, relax for a few minutes, and then I'll come down and talk to you." So you don't have to talk immediately, but the receiver, the one who's going to be listening, has a duty to get in touch with the person within 24 hours. So it teaches the person who has something to say, gives them the ability to learn how to hold their feelings in and just hold on to them, feeling like they don't have to spew them out all at once. If they know that this person will be back and ready to listen to them. And that's what makes this work so well, is that you know you're going to be able to be heard. So they'll be able to sit down and talk about thoughts and feelings or whatever they want to talk about. What I do and what I encourage people to do at home is I put two chairs together in my office and have them face each other with a little bit of space between them. You don't want them to getting so touched that their knees are touching. You don't want them to lean in and hold each other's hands. You want to have a little bit of distance. And what I do is I imagine the relationship is that space in between them. It means that the two of them are individuals. They have their own perspective. Their perspective is correct for them. Both of them, I tell them that you're 100% right in what you're doing, thinking and feeling right now, and so are you. And so you've got this relationship in between, and what they're going to do is work on the relationship. So everything they do is about moving, improving the quality of the relationship. And so if you're going to do it with an appreciation, you want to be able to say there's going to be a sender and there's going to be a receiver. And the three main steps of the dialogue are to mirror, validate, and have empathy. So if you're going to tell an appreciation to your partner, you want to be a little bit specific. Oftentimes, when I lead people through this, I say, tell them something you appreciate about them. And they'll say, well, I appreciate that you're nice. And that's nice to hear that, or you're loving. Um, I like the way you're kind to me. What I like to do is have them get very specific about it, something that they did that was very important to them, such as I appreciate it the other day when you came home and you saw I was having so much trouble with the kids that you said, let me take care of them and you take a rest for them. And something specific that the partner did. And then that person will feel loved and cared for by the spouse. And the spouse will see and help his wife out. And so it's specific things I want them to pick, to choose. One of the things that I am thankful for that my husband does is at times, if he's out of the house before I am, the coffee's made and it's in a thermos and there'll be a cup there. And this doesn't happen every day, but there'll be a little piece of paper with a heart drawn on it, stuck in there. And it's just a nice thing he does to let me know he's thinking about. If that happened every day, it wouldn't mean that much to me. Oh, well, don't waste paper, just use the same one over and over again. So it's got to be something that happens sporadically and that you begin to start noticing what's wonderful about your spouse. That's the good thing about this is when you start wanting to have things to share with them and you focus more on that than you do on the quarrels. The whole point of Imago is to try to get people to be focused on their relationship. So the sender would say, thank you for coming home and taking care of the children. Um, I appreciate it. It made me feel taken care of, and you had I felt loved, and I appreciate it. And so the person that's listening needs to mirror what is said. So I say, I hear you say that you were really thankful that I came home and offered to take care of the kids, right? Have I got it? Yes. Uh, and I can see why that helped you out so much. And it makes sense that you would feel that way and that you were glad you felt loved and cared for. And she had also told him that she's told him how lucky she was that she had this wonderful man for her husband, and you can validate that. And then you can have empathy. I can see why you were grateful for that, and it makes sense. So you have those three steps to follow. This really helps when you go into things that are troublesome and hard to talk about because it becomes harder to listen when it's something up that you're arguing about, such as he had decided to cook a special dinner for her on Saturday afternoon. And she came home late and had come home real late for the dinner. And he was real angry about that. And he said, I have something to dialogue. You know, you came in late. And she could have come in and said, well, it was the traffic. I couldn't help it, yada, yada, yada. And they can do like that. If they dialogue about it, her job is to sit down and listen to what he has to say. I cooked the dinner and my feelings were hurt that you didn't show up. And I felt like you didn't care for me. And the story I'm telling myself is that my efforts don't matter around. She gets to repeat that back to him. I hear you say that's the way you feel, and I understand they have empathy. She may have her reasons, but the first thing she wants to do is validate him. Then, after she does that, she can say, I'm really sorry the traffic was bad. And he can say, I hear that now. But without, she heard what he was going through. And that's what people need to do. What couples need to do is hear and feel what's going on between each other. So once the sender has shared, the person that's been listening may or may not want to response. It just depends on what's going on. But there's a chance for you to play ping pong a little bit if you need to. If there's you're in the deep end of the pool and you need to know how to settle something. The techniques here, once you get used to them, and people say that this a lot, it sounds awkward, and it does sound awkward. It's like taking Spanish. It just doesn't seem right, but once you do it long enough, it works. My husband and I have not been using Imago for for a period of time. It's been a while because we just don't. We kind of it comes into our language, and I asked him the other day, a couple of months back. I said, "Listen, do you still remember what the stages are of the Imago relationship?" And he said, "I hear you say, do you still remember the steps of the Imago relationship therapy?" It's something that can be drilled into us and we can always pick it up when we need it. Um, so the Imago dialogue is what we use throughout all of our time with clients, and want everybody to get used to it that's working with it. Because in Imago, there are 6 steps that we use to create a conscious relationship. Number one, we need to recommit. And I ask couples to do that from the time they come into the office to recommit to their relationship. Sometimes couples are just on the brink, just about to, but I'm gonna, and I'll say, can you commit to 3 months? No. Okay, you don't have to. Can you commit to 2 months? I don't know. Will you commit to a month of coming in here and work on? Yeah, I can do that. So just do something to commit to it. In therapy, it's best to commit to 12 sessions, but you need the time to go through it. So you need to commit to the relationship. You need to commit to the therapy, which means that couples need to also commit to using the other, all of the Imago, um, use the Imago dialogue and the various oh my God, I'm lost tongue tied for words, but they use it in everything that we suggest that they do. All right. So they need to commit to that and to use the dialogue through all of our time together. Okay, number two they need to do is to remove negativity. And that's from the very beginning, from the time they first come in. I have them sit together across from each other and visualize their relationship. And I want them to have take a zero negativity pledge, and they write that down and they have a 30-day thing to check off if they do it. And negativity means you can't roll your eyes, sneer, yell, swear, um, do anything negative. You know, you just got to get that out of there. That doesn't mean you can't disagree. You can sit down, do the dialogue, and disagree about things, but you have to do it in a healthy way, not a negative way. You start screaming at one another, you have to write it down on that little calendar, and then make a pledge. Go on from there. Kind of dialogue through that as you need to move forward, but to get the negativity out of the relationship. Eliminate swearing. You know, don't cuss at each other. It's just that, you know, I cuss in the car at the people that drive around me that don't drive right. I just say it, you know, in the car to myself, but I don't do it to people I love. I don't say that, especially my partner. I wouldn't do those things. So you want to remove negativity. So far, you're going to recommit to the relationship, to the therapy, and to using the dialogue and during your time together with your partner. Uh, remove negativity. The next thing they need to do is to revision their relationship. And that's where I have people, or I suggest that people sit down and take some time and write down what they would have, what their perfect relationship or ideal relationship would look like. Maybe 10 to 12 things. We spend time together in the morning before we go to work. We have a certain time where we spend a certain time weekends. We together have friends together. We have friends separately, like we want to spend time with. We like to have people over. We like to do this. We want to have 2 point something children, whatever it might be. You write these things down. Each of you go separately and write 10 to 12 things down. Then you get together and compare them. And the ones that match up, you just put a check by, and that's good. The ones that don't match up, you can talk about them and decide if that's something either one of you would want to say, okay, let's go ahead and do this or not. Or you can say, let's put this one back for something we may do look at later. But for right now, let's work on the positive ones, and then we can, the ones that we agree on, work on that and see if the others will come back in at a later time. So that's what you want to do is plan your relationship instead of just assuming it will happen. A relationship takes work. It always takes work and it takes effort to do it. So you want to not just let it happen helter skelter. The other thing is to re-imaging our partner. And you know that partners bring their baggage and childhood wounds into the relationship, and that they are triggered by that at times, and their behavior is not healthy. They may yell and do all that stuff. If we can see our partner as a wounded child, it helps. I've got a picture of myself and a picture of my husband on my phone when he's 10 and I'm 9. Every now and then I need to take it out and realize that we're both wounded children. I have to realize that I'm a wounded child. I've got issues that I carry with me and can be triggered by other people. And I just need to be aware of it and to have more empathy for myself and to have more empathy for my partner. If we can see that, we begin to know each other at a deeper level. We talk a little bit about what our childhood was like, the things that bothered us, the things that my older brother who tormented me, the things that went on in our life. It's strange. He had an older brother that loved sports, and he didn't care a thing about sports. So he gave him a hard time. So we both had brothers that gave him a little bit of rough times at times. So we began to see each other as a child. And when we can view our partner as a child and they come in and they're acting out sometime and they're acting like little children and misbehaving and yelling and doing all that, we can think of them, if they start yelling and they're really upset about something, we can understand that it's a wounded child inside there that's having that reaction. So we can have some empathy and some tolerance, and we can talk to them later and say, I have something I'd like to talk with you about. When you came in and you were very angry, let's talk about these things. So it's seeing our partner as a child helps a lot. The other is the last thing is, no, not the last thing, but we want to restructure things. We want to transform a frustration that we're having into a behavior change. And since we all have frustrations and childhood needs, our frustrations are childhood needs and wounds in disguise. It's something that we may need, but we show it in a different way. An example would say one of the partners needs a little more hugging, a little more attention, a little more physical stuff, needs you to come over and sit down next to them for a little while. And your partner doesn't really like to do that. You know, just it's just not who your partner is. What you do is you can decide, okay, we've talked about this. One wants a little more hugging, a little more things like that. The other doesn't. So what the one does is decides that I love my partner and the relationship is right in the two of you. So what I'm going to do is try to stretch and consciously give my partner the hugs that he or she wants. So you stretch to meet that need, which helps heal that childhood wound. And both of you come together and you're right over the relationship. You've reached out to make a relationship better. So we learn to stretch and view um, um, something that's amiss in the house and figure out what's really going on and see how we can fix that. The last one we try to do is re-romanticize the relationship. Remember back in unconscious relationships I was talking about, the first one was the romantic. Well, that falls away. All that goes away, and it comes the power struggle, and then we get to this other thing. Well, sometimes we want the romance back, but this time, instead of letting it happen unconsciously, we do it consciously. So you consciously decide we're going to put some romance back in our relationship. And each couple gets a chance to decide how that works. My husband and I, doesn't matter who does it, but I might say, hey, there's a show downtown. Think you might be interested in that. That'd be fun to do. Do you want to go do that? He'll say, yeah. I say, great. I'll get some tickets. I'll get the tickets. We get dressed up, coat and tie. We go down there in the afternoon because we like the afternoons better than staying out late. So we do that. We go get dinner. We have a date. We always use the magic words to each other. It's please and thank you. Would you like some coffee? Yes, please, thank you. We're aware of that, of how to be kind and romantic to one another. I know his favorite flower is a yellow rose, and I bring them to him on a semi-regular basis. If I brought them every week, it would become ho-hum, but I just do it every now and then. You know, it's just the thing to do. But I've got a number of things that I do to keep the romance going. And romance can be anything from emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, walking together while walking the dogs, being together, walking through the park, whatever it might be. It's just whatever you see as romantic and things that draw you together. Um, so the essence of a conscious partnership is, I'm just going to read these to you because I think they're important to hear. And this is what we want through Imago. Number one, you need to accept that your partner is not you and has a different perspective. Um, you may love broccoli, he may hate broccoli. And you've seen people get into this argument over, what do you mean you don't like broccoli? Everybody likes broccoli. Haven't you had it with cheese? No, I still don't like it. I can't believe you. You know, and you get over these things, but everybody has a different perspective. You need to be an advocate for your partner's separate reality and potential. Make our relationship a sacred space by removing all negativity. Always honor your partner's boundaries and practice Imago dialogue until it becomes second nature and you can interact spontaneously again. Okay? I took a gigantic thing and pulled it down into the smallest thing I could do to try to get you to understand this. And I would like to, I've got some time left over here to answer questions and would be more than happy to do that. Um, I need to be able to find the chat room. Or Marcus, tell me where I need to go for people to ask where I'll have their questions.
Yeah, ready. So yeah, if you just scroll down to the bottom where all those little icons are, there should just be a little button that says
Where
chat. Just click that
just click on
down at the
chat.
bottom.
Okay,
Yeah, just click
there
on
it
chat.
is.
It should pop up. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, do I have questions over here for me?
Yeah, I don't see anything yet.
Okay, we can give them time. By the way, if people are still listening, I want you to know that if you have questions and would like to talk to me more about Imago, or just have questions, just like to maybe come see me a little bit, you can. You can call Eden's Counseling Group at 832-559-2622 and get a 15-minute session via um, Zoom. And we can talk and I can answer some of your questions and you can get an idea if I would work for you or just answer some questions that you need to get answered. All right. Just want to please give me a call if you want to. Will everybody hear what I'm saying? Marcus?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you, Roddy.
Yeah, you can contact me. I gave the number there at 832. You can call there. And let me get this going here for me.
Hey there, Roddy.
Yeah,
We have a question. It says, does Imago work for an employer-employee
I'm sorry.
relationship?
I'm sorry.
Does Imago work? Does an Imago work for an employer-employee relationship?
Yes, it can. It's made for romantic things, but the techniques can be used for an employee-employee relationship. If you're if you're having trouble communicating back and forth, if one person says something to you and you don't want to react, you can just say, I hear you say that you're upset with the way I'm doing my work. Is that correct? Have I got it? You can do that back and forth. Yes, you can do the dialogue to where you're able to hear what your employer and employee might say without reacting to one another. So you can, yes, it works with any conversation like that. It's very easy to work. And other messages. Oh, I see. Here they are down here. Yes, did you whoever was looking for the phone number, just so you'll know, it's 832-559-2622. Again, it's 832-559-2622. Reduce conflict. Does all right, understood. In your opinion, yes, it does work with the parent-child relationship. In your opinion, does a parent-child relationship have a romantic phase? I can't imagine that it wouldn't. One is wonderful and new, but I can't imagine when I don't have children, so I can't really address that. I've never had a child of my own, a little baby. I like little babies. I think they're wonderful. I like talking to kids of all ages. Um, but I don't know if you're trying to do that. It depends on the age of the child. If you've got a 13-year-old you're trying to argue with, that's going to be a little bit harder to get them to play into it, but at least you can let them know you're hearing what they have to say. If it's a little kid, I don't know. I've never been asked this question, but it seems like there's parts of it that you could use.
Hi, I'm Shagita. I think it's easier through voice, yeah, rather than texting. I asked you that question earlier. Does a parent-child relationship have a romantic phase?
Can you
hear me?
yes, I can. I
Okay.
can't imagine that there wouldn't be a romantic phase with a child. When you
Okay.
first have a child, you're going to be uh,
Okay.
enamored with them and love them, and they're fabulous and all that. But I'm sure when they become toddlers and you're running around going crazy with them, it would be a harder thing to do. Are you experiencing a
Mhm.
romantic phase with your child?
No, not actually, but I brought this up in another training as well, and the trainer told me that you can't possibly, because we were told to have our reflective writing, right? From childhood, whatever that we remember. So when I mentioned about this romantic phase with my parents that I remember of, where they really make a fuss of me and things like that. And she said that's not possible. Usually in a parent-child relationship, romantic phase is taken off.
Well,
So that's why.
it depends on what you think of romantic. Romantic is where you love and care for somebody.
Yeah.
It's going to be different than, of course, a coupleship. But if according to Imago, if you have negative things, they stick down there the deepest because they hurt us the most. But I don't know. This is just real interesting thing. I'm going to have to read about this or find out about it. Interesting
Okay.
question. I like it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so it's running. If we can have negative traits, then we should be able to bring positive traits as well, which we
Of
have
course.
obtained when we were young.
Of course, we are in Imago in relationship. The original attraction has to do with the negatives, but you have the positive things too. Because
Right.
remember in Imago you have the positive and the negative of the parents. So you're also attracted to people because of the positive things too. It's both.
It's both. Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
You're
responding to
welcome.
that.
My pleasure. Your husband will email you issues and concerns he is having with me because he feels he can better communicate through that way. Uh, wow, that's interesting. He maybe can, but you're not really connecting. I don't, the whole part of Imago is for you to be able to sit across from each other. Will he do that with you when you're talking and just trying to communicate? That's curious. I don't understand. Um, wow, it seems to me that that's an interesting way he has of wanting to communicate with you. I can see why it would drive you nuts. And how do I hear him clearer when communicating verbally without having to read his email? Oh, when you want to hear him, how, mostly it drives me nuts. How do I hear him clearer when communicating verbally without having to read his emails? To hear him, you need to be able to mirror back what he has to say. If he's talking to you, and if he's talking too fast, one thing you can say is, what you say is very important to me, but you're saying it too fast. Would you slow down so I can get everything? I love you, and it's important that I hear what you have to say. Slow up. So, and ask more. Can you tell me more about that? I hear you're really upset about something. Tell me more about that. Um, and just keep pulling things out of him, and that's the way you can hear what he has to say, what he's wanting to say to you. You may not like what he has to say, but you're really wanting to hear what he has to say. And after he communicates it, perhaps you'll be able to tell him succinctly what's going on with you. Imago would help you as a couple if you came to see me. I could teach you how to talk to one another. That would really be the thing to do. If he would come and, you know, you can always tell him that you want to learn how to improve your communication with him and ask him if he would come to a couple of sessions with you about learning how to communicate. That might do it, as opposed to you need to go to therapy because you drive me crazy talking on the email. You might just want to say, I need to learn how to connect with you. Anybody else? Thank you for your questions and thank you for your time this evening. I'm always glad to share this information. It made a big difference in my life. And yes, and don't forget to fill out the feedback form. So anyway, um, it sings to my soul, and I like it, and it's made big changes in my life, and I love seeing people change and their coupleship bloom. All right. Listen, thank you for attending tonight. You're welcome.